I'm here today with my really, really good friend, Mysti Berry. Mysti and I have known each other for a really long time. So long that I'm not going to say how long we have known each other. But we worked together a really long time ago in the same tech writing group, and since then much has happened and many things have changed. Do you want to start by introducing yourself, Mysti?
I'd love to. My name is Mysti Berry. I live in San Francisco with a wild graphic novelist husband and a rescue cat. And I have been writing software documentation for a really long time. A really long time. I started off as a database writer, and now if it's delivered over the internet, I can write about it.
Woo. Um, I I I know a lot of things that have changed for me in the time since we worked together. But as you look at trends in tech writing, what has changed?
So when I was a baby tech writer, you had to explain what client server meant to people. And that's no longer true. My first few docs were shipped on CDs, which meant that you had to wait 6 months before you could fix the inevitable typo. Um, and I, I always want to say this one thing. When I was 8 years old, I was looking at my dad's electrical engineering monthly publication. And I'm like, oh, Dad, technical writer, what's that? And this was before the internet revolution. And he said, oh, technical writer, you don't want to do that.
No,
You'll never get
seriously,
anywhere. Yeah,
I had
seriously.
no idea.
Yeah. So many things have changed. Things move very fast. Now we can use a continuous development, continuous delivery system or close to it. Although we never seem to manage to hook up the docs to the software release. So one day that will happen automatically. And I think at some companies it actually does. So anyway, in the old days, slow moving, lots of time to think, lots of time to test, lots of time to play, no way to fix a typo or an error except to issue an erratum that you sent out. And now it just changes like that. And of course, the breadth of tools, the depth of the tools we use. I'm using the same tools as a developer now, and I never did before. I don't, you know, oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm giving you the side eye because you and I used the same tool chain way back in the day. And I was just, as you were talking about
Mm,
using the same tools as as the developers, I was thinking about the fact that way back in the day, we actually did. And then the industry went through a period where it was not common to, and then we're back to the place where we actually were full circle all the way those decades ago. Because as I
that's right.
recall, our tool chain back in the day involved NROF, which was markup language,
That's right.
and make files and checking our changes into the source code repository way back in the day.
Yep. And even sometimes editing WSDL files and weird stuff like that.
Woo!
And I traumatically repressed all of that. And my memory starts at FrameMaker, which was a tool only a writer would tolerate.
Oh, I remember loving FrameMaker at the time, but I also don't think it played nicely with source control.
Mm. Proprietary, not proprietary. What is the word? Like literal Word files are those puffy files.
Binary format, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not plain flat text. Yep, yep.
yep.
So it's kind of weird how we've come full circle because now, like, as an industry, we went through the frame maker and the what you see is what you get, doc writing stacks, and then DITA. There was the rise of DITA. I don't know if we've seen the fall because I don't pay any attention. I don't know if we've seen the fall of DITA and it's been replaced by Markdown. Um, you would
That's an
know. I wouldn't.
that's a great question we can pursue.
Go ahead and pursue it.
Okay. So if a company translates into 16 different languages or has a similar really heavy reuse scenario, then DITA and XML helps. I think it will also lend itself towards the sort of munching of content by metadata that that AI and other things may want. But it
Okay.
definitely was. I remember the year it was. Oh, you have to learn this or you'll never work again. And now it's like, do I want to work for a DITA shop or don't I?
And has it been replaced in the places that did replace it? Has it been replaced by Markdown?
Yeah, Markdown, any shop where you want non-writers to develop content quickly and they are engineering friendly, Markdown is the thing. I also worked in a Markdown XML sort of half mixed thing called ASCII doc, which was like Markdown, but it had lots of extra rules. And every single one of those extra rules thwarted the engineers. Like, why is it doing this? I'm like, oh, I'll fix it. Don't worry. So I
So,
liked ASCII doc because it could do things like control space, vertical and horizontal space, and do fancy things. But as soon as you get fancy, non-writers can't use the tool very well. And that's reasonable, I think.
I'm having a lot of thoughts and I'm having a hard time getting them all out of my brain and into this conversation. So let's talk about the need to work effectively with people who don't necessarily want to learn all the things that allow you to control all the stuff. They want to be able to contribute. They are non-writers. Maybe they're developers. Maybe it's QA. Maybe it's somebody else. But you've had to figure out how to partner with people in other roles, and I'm really curious. What have you learned about making that partnership work well?
So having clear processes so everybody knows what the writer's responsible for and how they can add value. As in, hey, engineer, don't spend a million years wordsmithing it. Or, hey, product manager, know that I am going to take some of the marketing out of your content and just be good with that. Or not, we'll talk about it. So there's that. Um, the thing that I think has been most interesting everywhere I've ever worked, whether it's a new company or an old one, at some point everybody's like, all the content is in 6 different silos. How do we deal with this? How do we? And so one time I was working with with an engineering team, and they were writing their own internal docs because there was one writer supporting a whole company. That was me, and they were really frustrated, and they knew their content wasn't serving themselves well, and they wanted to fix it. And I'm like, okay. So we put a Tiger team together, a QA person, a couple of engineers, and me in a room. And we're like, how do we make this better? And I'm like, well, how do you want to make it better? So we had some conversations about that. And at a certain point, um, they were sort of struggling with which information goes where. And I'm like, well, let's talk about concept, task, and reference. If you put all the concept content together in one place, then people know to go to that place for concepts. And that's when they're doing their thinking and their curiosity, and their brain is in a literally different place than when they are wanting to perform a task and you give them instructions. So put the task info in a different place and then put the reference, which is just lookup info. And I literally saw eyes light up because that made so much sense to them and they were so happy. And they're like, okay, we don't need you anymore. Oh, but then they came back and like, but what if the concept about subject X over here and the task about subject X over here, won't that be hard? And I'm like, just put in a link, or they'll figure, there are other solutions for that. Or put it all together in one doc, just make the topics separate so a person has a good idea where to go. But anyway, I will always, one of my favorite memories is those guys going, I get it. It was so much fun. And they ran with it. They never looked back.
I love how you gave them this simple framework, and that framework kind of uh, enabled partnership, but also enabled them to be independent and not have to depend on you coming in and being the person who did the documentation for them.
Yeah. I honestly was waiting for the call when they would say, wait, this is kind of referencey and kind of concepty. But they managed that.
I feel like it is a good, I think you said that they were developers.
Yeah.
It's a good
Developers and a QA
developer
person.
skill to be able to find the seams and distinguish this category from that category.
Yep.
That is something that they I would expect them to bring to the table. Okay. So so partnering partnering with people in other roles and helping them learn at least like a sliver of what you know so that they can be effective. And that leads me to wonder, I'm super curious, what do you really wish that like technical leaders knew about tech writing? Because I feel like there's this gap in what maybe they know about tech writing as a discipline. There's so much more to it than just get some content into Markdown. What do you really wish that they knew?
There are a couple things. I have opinions. Um,
Oh, good.
well, the one that hurts the most as the push to get things pushed out more quickly has accelerated. Um, Understanding that technical writing exists at the beginning of a project all the way to the end, and all the shenanigans that happen to push that date out apply pressure to tech writers the same way it does to QA or regulatory checks or things like that. So include the tech writer at the beginning with the meaningful stuff that I'll say in a sec, and know that every decision you make is going to affect the downstream people, and just be aware of it. You can't help it if something gets delayed, um, or worse yet, pulled in. The the tech writer's struggle is not going to stop that from happening, but just know it's a thing and it hurts. Relatedly, being willing to give an internal won't be released before date really helps everyone. And I understand that any date is at risk of being quoted by a salesperson to a customer. So you want to be careful about that, but knowing not just at the quarter boundary. Like, is this really going to go out this month? Or are we hoping it's going to go out this month? And it's okay if it slips. Just give me the day before which I do not need to deliver content. Also know that writers are not black boxes. We are not AI. We are not algorithms. You cannot wave some product requirements at us and push a button and have us spit out the content. The best tech writers play with the software. The best tech writers don't believe a word you say until they prove it. That's our job. It has wreaked havoc on my relationship with my husband, but he's finally figured out I'm just reality testing. I don't actually disbelieve him. Um, and that the more we know about the product, the better the content will be. So give us those user requirements. Tell me in a document how the customer is expected to use it, what they're trying to achieve. If I understand what our customers are trying to achieve with this feature, my content will be so much better. So I think that was it. That was mostly it. And also, we are apparently all addicted to chocolate, I guess.
So you're saying bribes work. That's what I'm hearing.
Mm, mm.
Okay.
Chocolate,
Okay.
beer, whiskey. Those are my
Got it.
bribes.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So part of your onboarding anytime you go into a new organization is to make sure that they understand what your bribes are.
Yeah, well, I save that for last.
Or potentially to learn what their bribes are. I do remember
Yeah.
in my history some tense moments when I was having trouble getting information out of people. So,
Oh,
you know.
that's another thing that really changed. I
Oh,
remember in our early days, and you probably remember their names. I traumatically repress the names of people who caused me problems, but engineers who felt they were too good for the tech writer or shouldn't be bothered at all by the tech writer, even if the tech writer was really good and did all her homework and only had good questions to ask. I haven't encountered a developer or a QA person or a product marketing person like that in 15 years, I think. And there were a lot of them back in the day. And I don't know why, but so that's a good thing that has changed.
I do remember the good ones, and I doubt they will ever find this video. But it is a small industry, you never know. So I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Larry and Mark for being amazing partners way back in the day, because they always had time for me, and it was never a struggle for me to get information out of them. We won't talk about the names of the people who were a little bit more difficult. Um, so, all right, somewhere in there, you said a magic buzzword, AI,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, uh, there are those who believe that at this point, just about any knowledge worker can be replaced by ChatGPT or Claude or pick your favorite flavor. I'm super curious, and I'm just going to leave this super open-ended. AI?
So AI is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I am going to set aside the whole concern, and it's a really legitimate concern about how AI was trained. Like, I think things happened. I think everybody is owed a lot of money, but I also think they're owed money for their personal data. So I'm going to set all that aside because that's not relevant to tech writing. But it was my good luck to work on a product that had AI built in. And it was a product that was very technical. And so the customers needed all the help they could get. And it really opened my eyes to the possibility of how technical content is going to change as I think AI has reached a boundary, the AI that's based on, until it gets better at processing context to deliver answers and isn't just sort of pattern matching. But yeah, so this, when I got there, the PM was like, yo, Misty, I don't know how much we're going to need you because, AI docs itself. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. I can't wait to go to the beach. But as it turns out, um, a, they do a ton of writing all on their own, which is the things that AI chatbot will spit back out to people. I expected at some point they would ask me to do grammatical checks on that, but they didn't. So they must have had an AI bot somewhere that checked for grammar. And and so AI is really good at that thing. If you give it a style guide and you say, "Hey, where do I violate the style guide?" In the early days, it was hallucinating like a crazy monkey, but we figured out how to write our prompts, or the Claude was better than something else, or whatever changed, it got better. Um, and so by the time I left this company, I slight change of topic to how tech writers use AI. But by the time I left this company, we were pretty comfortable using AI to check our grammar and style guide conformance on a first draft before we passed it on to a peer for peer review. And that was great because that meant the peer reviewer could focus on things like structure and readability and things that the AI wouldn't necessarily see, and you never have time to comment on. And I found that getting really clean copy in as an editor, I was able to really challenge the writer to say, I I get why you ordered it this way, but it's unclear that this thing needs to be done before this thing, so can you work on that a little bit? And those kinds of things that actually made the content not just ever free, but better, easier to read, and easier to get your job done with. It is clear that AI is going to replace a ton of the work that tech writers have to do. I still don't believe it will replace us because, like, asking AI, so we had to write in, and not had to write, we got to write in Markdown at this company. But most of the reviewers were not comfortable using Git or GitHub or anything. So our process was to copy all drafts into Google Docs. And you can hear from the way my voice is changing how much that annoyed me. For them to review all the review comments all in one place in the Google Doc. And then you'd have to either port the changes or do whatever. AI is great for that. AI will write Markdown faster than I can. AI will create tutorial examples faster than I can because I am not a developer. I'm developer friendly, wrote developer doc a long time, but so there's ways to accelerate what technical writers do. I'm sad though because what I'm seeing is that there are fewer tech writer jobs instead of there being better tech writing because we accelerated the boring stuff. Oh, it's not all boring though. AI is I I asked AI questions like, hey, what have I missed in this document? And I think actually you inspired me to ask that question. Ask them smart questions, and the smart questions get smart answers too. But we worked really hard at this one company to find all the points of friction, the things that we had to do that drove us mad, and make the computer do that, just like any other computer tool.
So it's good for accelerating. I suspect you also have opinions on why it can't replace. So like what is a skilled tech writer bringing to the table that at least until our robot overlords take over the entire planet and can fold laundry and be a general intelligence kind of thing, until we get to that point, they're not going to be able to replace a skilled tech writer. Tell me why.
At risk of being sent to HR, I'm going to call my valuable AI coworker a mediocrity machine.
I don't know why that would get you sent to HR.
Well, if we were working together and I called you a mediocrity machine, I'd get spanked. But I could call it a mediocrity machine. And it doesn't have to be. But it often writes very puffy things because it was trained on the internet. It was trained on a lot of not the best writing. And yeah, it's been taught about style guides and stuff. The insertion of adverbs specifically drives me mad because I spent 10 years pulling all that stuff out of my writing. And it doesn't help, right? And especially if you are reading a piece of technical content, you're not doing it for enjoyment. You're doing it because the UI failed you, or you failed to understand how the UI worked, and you need help. You need just enough help to go back to your day job. You do not need sentences about how wonderful you are. You don't need adverbs. Adverbs, I want everyone to learn this now. Adverbs are the liars of English.
Wait, adverbs are the liars of English. You're going to have to unpack that one for me.
Okay, can I?
Please.
All right. So, let's say we're talking about a new feature, Feature X. Feature X is highly performative. And I have questions about the word performative anyway. But highly doesn't tell you anything. But it makes you feel like whatever it is, that must be a lot, but you don't know anything with any specificity. When people are lying to you, they will often use adverbs to crank up your emotional response. So when you listen to public discourse, pay attention to who uses adverbs, the ly words, and who doesn't. So that's why I call them the liars of English. And it just AI, for a while, every tool I used, the AI would insert adverbs. I'm like, no, I don't want to make anyone feel good. I just want them to get back to their day job. I mean, I want them to be happy, but.
Well, being able to navigate the docs to get the information that you want quickly, that will make people feel happy, much more happy than knowing that something is highly performative. That's great. So part of what I'm hearing in what you say is that it really is about the judgment, understanding how to craft prose or instructions or whatever, or for that matter, your task instructions, your reference, or your concept, but to construct them in such a way that for the context is going to really support the reader the best. And there's no judgment, or sorry, there's no substitute for the human judgment involved in that at this time.
Yeah, I have not seen any substitute for that at all.
And I know that one of the other things that you have experience at doing is simplifying documentation, which is another thing that, at least in my experience so far, AI is not very good at. I use I use Cursor for writing code. I have also used I use ChatGPT regularly and Claude, and none of them are really good at simplifying at all. They're really good at expanding and complexifying. So as you look at ways that you simplify, I know one is removing links that it looks like it's serving the user and it's actually not. Do you want to talk about how you simplify documentation?
Sure. There are a few different things you can do. The links thing is really interesting because we as technical writers, we're always thinking about every customer. Like, we don't want to just serve that 80%, right? We want every customer who comes to our content, oh, what if they think they're asking a question about this, but they really meant this other thing, and we happen to know that some set of customers do that, or we just imagine they do. Let me put a link here so they can get to this other place. The problem with that approach is twofold. One, it can, especially if you put links in line, not at the bottom of a topic, but in the actual topic itself, that can entangle the content. So when you go to move that content somewhere else, does that link still work? Especially if you use a lot of indirect references and you're moving levels, a file up a few levels in the folder structure or whatever. We reached a point at one company where writers were just like, I'm not going to update this because I can't move it without breaking 7 other things that I don't know I'm going to break until the build. And no writer ever wants to break the build, which is a good thing. So anyway, by removing, and then we did a little test where we took a sample of content. Okay, I have to say also at the first, this is excluding reference content. A lot of reference content is a bunch of links in a structured order so you can find the thing you're looking for. So set aside reference, like API reference lists and stuff. Those will always have links. But for concept and task, especially task, we measured how often links were clicked. And it was a really low number. It was like 1% of links ever got clicked, and they got only clicked super, super rarely. And I think we used Google Analytics to figure that out, but there's lots of tools that can do that. And I was so shocked by that because I had the same mindset of, we got to take care of our customers. We got to, figure out how to help them if they're not quite where they're supposed to be. A writer at VMware that I saw at a conference, she's like, I don't believe that. I'm like, okay, go check it out. And she went and checked it out on some VMware doc, some non-reference developer doc, I think. And she's like, oh my God, you were right. So we're spending a lot of time and energy putting in affordances that do not deliver value to 90, 95, 99% of our customers. There's also the minor fact that the more links there are in a topic, the more slight interruptions there are in the read. And these are on the sub-second level, but my belief was they add up. So if you do things like put all your links in a see also section at the bottom of the topic or in a separate topic, depending on, I will often talk about things with an XML DITA viewpoint. So you can always link topics together however you want to publish them, right? But anyway, get those links out of, and really get them out of steps. And the story I tell about don't put a link in a step, don't invite someone to leave a process halfway through the process, is imagine you get wine and flowers and your best boyfriend, and you go to somebody's house because you got invited to a cocktail party, and you show up and you say hello, and the host says, oh, hi, why don't you go next door first? They might have what you want more than us. Like, you would feel awful. And I feel this is a valid analogy to putting a link to something else. And we often do it as writers because we're in a hurry and we're like, oh, support just told me that somebody didn't know this was Unicode instead of not Unicode, so I'd better slap it in here. And I'm like, yeah, you need to tell the customers that, probably not in the middle of step 3 of a 5-step process. So strip those links out. And the other thing we learned is, and I want to give credit to, I think it's Gavin Austin, a writer at Salesforce. I think he's the one who pointed this out. It's like, instead of pointing people to some other doc, if you're telling them, so we had a really common pattern. I'll just say Salesforce because they've fixed it all. We had this pattern where we're like, you're over here talking about accounts, but you want to refer someone to contacts, which is a different object. So blah, 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 contacts. But before you get here, you have to go do this thing in accounts. And we would send them to the account doc, and the account doc would tell them where in the UI to go do the thing. So just point them to the UI. Just say, you got to go do this in the blah, blah, blah UI. And we got rid of 40% of all the links in over 10,000 topics And it only cost me one really good writer.
What do you mean it cost you a writer?
So this writer was so angry that we were removing affordances to the imaginary customer. And she tried to tell me, and I didn't listen properly. I'm just like, oh, she's just resisting change. She'll come around. She was genuinely deeply offended. And so she quit. And I've always felt bad about that, because if I'd listened properly, and also she had a point, which is some topics ended up being dead ends. There was, it wasn't really malicious compliance. It was improperly formatted instructions to the writers, I think. But sometimes just all the links got stripped out with no other change to the content. So you had a dead end topic that didn't actually serve the customer's needs. And she was seeing that, and I wasn't understanding that. So when you go to
Got
change your content, make sure you listen to everybody.
it. Got it.
Sorry, that was a deep dive on links. It was a passion for some reason. Simplifying docs, also the concept, sticking to concept, task, and reference, so that you can make the docs more modular. Only talking about one thing at a time. My favorite information architect, a guy named Steven Anderson, said that any task is complete when the customer has gotten their job done, the thing they wanted to do. So include everything that helps them do that, and leave out everything that doesn't. Put it someplace else. And that discipline has helped me write better tasks. Because it's not that much fun to write tasks, right? It all seems so simple, and you can feel like you want to do more. Writers always want to do more for the customer, but sometimes less is more. It's a
Sometimes
cliche,
the
but it's
customer
true.
really doesn't want any more.
No, nobody wants cognitive overload. Nobody.
Nobody, nobody, no matter how well written the cognitive overload is. Um, so I know that in addition to the links being a passion project, you've done some deep dives into research around what makes docs more or less usable. And I'm just really curious, has anything in that research ever surprised you? Like, oh, I thought that they would be more usable if, but it turns out, or vice versa, I thought this didn't matter and it turns out that it makes a huge difference.
Um, one thing that totally surprised me was we were building an API tutorial for how to go from zero to a functioning MuleSoft integration, maybe something like that. And so we organized the tutorial by steps and what we thought were the logical steps for a human, not necessarily following the dictates of the software per se, but a customer would take some amount of time to do this thing in this one UI, so that's step one. Then they have to go over to this other UI and do some other different stuff. That's step two. And we deliberately put them in separate files so that we could measure using, I think, Google Analytics, or maybe it was Amplitude, how many people started in step one and how many people finished in step six. And by breaking up the topics that way, it was super easy for us to track that journey. And I discovered, I thought I had failed. I thought I had totally failed when somewhere around only 30% of the people who started on the first step got to the last step. And so I went to the other writers and I'm like, oh, I failed. He's like, no. If you read the literature, any online process fails, like, I don't know what the number was, 90% of the time, but we have actually succeeded. This is actually a good number. So the big lesson there was that understand what the numbers mean, make sure that you're measuring it properly. It was the other thing was like, when I was at Salesforce, that company was doubling in size, doubling in the number of customers every year for, I don't know what it was, 5 or 6 years, or maybe they still are, I don't know. So if you measure raw page counts, you are not taking into account that you're serving twice as many people. So you always have to make sure that, and now lots of companies have data products produced by data scientists, and so that's much better. But a lot of times technical writers are rolling their own And so like make sure you know understand what you're measuring, make sure you understand why you're measuring it, um, and then repeat the measurements periodically. Try to hook them to um, uh, meaningful events. Like if you know you're having a big release in October, don't go October 2nd and measure the changes. Give it 3 months.
Right,
Give it
right.
time to accumulate. And of course, this all depends on the size of the company and whether you're primarily internal or external or whatever. So, but you were asking about surprises. So that surprised me. What else surprised? The thing with the link surprised the dickens out of me. I'm like, really? Never? They're never clicking those links. And then I felt like a fool for all the years I'd spent laboriously putting and links.
Karen feeding of the links.
Yes. And now, GitHub, you can tell GitHub, tell me when the links are broken, but you still have to go in and fix them.
Yep.
Um, that I think that's the only surprises I can remember.
Okay, but you started going into a topic that I was super curious about, which is metrics. What I'm hearing you say is please instrument your docs so that you can actually
Oh,
tell when things are
yes.
getting better or worse, and when users are actually using the capabilities that you have put into your documentation.
Yeah. And do not use all the marketing metrics to measure your tech writing content. For example, bounce rates. Bouncing can be good. If a customer gets to the right page the first time, reads the 3 sentences they need, and gets back out, that's a good thing. So just ignore bounce rates. Page views, and also color your statistics with your knowledge of what should be happening. Um, you know where the valuable pages are. And if you see that the customers aren't getting there, go figure out why. We did a thing at one shop where we would look at the top 10% of pages visited and the bottom 10%. And we would really look at those bottom 10%. And like, does that content even need to be there? If no one ever looks at it, why are we writing it and maintaining it? And there's uh, once the content's out there, then there's no more cost associated with it theoretically, but that's not actually really true because you end up having to edit content and all of that. So it is worthwhile to call the stuff that no one's looking at if you understand why they're not looking at it. Sometimes the way our portals are constructed or the way the link paths are or the navigation, we're actually driving people to the wrong topics. And so figuring that out, that's when you look at the top 10%, it's like, why is everybody looking at this obscure content that only 4 of our customers need? And that's when you can look at the journeys and say, oh, how are they getting there?
Right.
Rage clicks. I had one. We were instrumented for rage clicks in one shop I worked at. I'm like,
What
I'm
is a
afraid.
rage click?
Oh, it's
I'm
when
unfamiliar.
someone is so annoyed that they have been not helped in the way they want that they're clicking on a thing over and over and over again. I didn't even know it was a thing that happened, but it is, and you can some systems measure it. So that's
Nice.
useful to know. But always color the metrics with your knowledge of what's supposed to be happening or your beliefs about what should be happening, and measure it more than once, right? Wherever you're at, set your baseline of wherever you're at, and then seek to improve and be modest. If you're being roped into putting these kinds of things in KPIs, be really modest in your expectations because these kinds of numbers change slowly and in small increments, in my experience.
Makes sense. All right, when you're not doing tech writing, you're a mystery writer.
I am.
You are a highly published mystery writer.
Aw. Yeah,
Um,
oh, go ahead.
no, you tell me. You've
I
had.
was just, I've been lucky enough to have a whole lot of my short stories published. I also wrote a novel about numbers that no one wanted to read, but that's all
Oh,
right. The
really?
next one's going to be good. You probably would. My
So
niece read it.
I'm super curious. Have you found any common threads between technical writing, nonfiction, well, most of the time nonfiction, um, and fiction writing?
Yeah, there are definitely common threads. There are interesting contrasts as well, but the common threads are voice matters. It matters differently, but it does matter. And voice is a tricky subject anyway. There's grammatical voice, which is first person, second person, third person. Most of our content is written, technical writing content's written in sort of in second person for task, and a sort of omniscient, usually second person too. But when you're in there in the weeds, you can often flip back and forth between second person, which is you do this, you do that, you leave out the you, but do this, do that, and a sort of third person or a passive construction. And flipping back and forth like that can really make for a disjointed reading experience. So one of the things I did as a technical editor was, you're talking directly to the customer here, and then you're suddenly talking about things in the third person here, and like you need to smooth that out one way or the other. And there's also, even more importantly, writing from the customer's point of view. Now, when you're writing fiction, I think you are assuming the reader is more or less like you, the writer. And so you're writing it from your point of view, but you're making it accessible. So hoping that the reader will share your point of view in terms of, what's interesting or important or fun or scary or whatever. In Tech Doc, it's very easy because it's sometimes it's because that's the content we got handed and we don't revise it, or it's easier to write this way. But writing from your employer's point of view is, I'll just use CrowdStrike as an example. CrowdStrike's new Falcon product is amazing and will rock your world. That is from the company's point of view, the company's perspective. What you want to do is, what does our customer most want out of this? And then you write it from the customer's point of view. Make your equipment secure and safe in the cyberspace with CrowdStrike's Falcon. And product managers learn to put the company name first because that's a marketing thing, right? You got to lead with the company, but you have a different audience. So that sort of thinking about who is coming to the page, why they're coming, and how you can entice them to align with you. It's true in fiction and nonfiction. There was a period of time when storytelling was a really big deal in Tech Doc. People talked about it a lot. I never saw it actually change how content is written. So I have a question mark in my mind. Wait, what happened to that story stuff? Did it all end up in marketing, or because the stories that technical writers tell are very subtle?
This has been amazing. I'm
Oh,
so grateful to you for spending time with me today and for sharing your wisdom. Super grateful. Thank you very much.
I love to talk about this stuff. It's so fascinating.
If people wanted to find you, where should they look?
They can look on LinkedIn. I'm Mysti Berry on LinkedIn. Yeah, or I'm on Write the Docs. There's a Slack group for Write the Docs, and I'm there, and you can find me there too. And I'm
Sweet.
always happy to talk to new writers or old writers, anyone in between.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thanks.